Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. Delighted to have you here talking a little bit about your ABM program and a little bit about the thinking behind it. Let's talk about value proposition, which is where we spent a lot of time talking to you and your team over the course of the last 2 or 3 months. So why were you open to evaluating your value prop as part of the whole kind of ABM strategy?
Well, it's so important as a company to continue revisiting your value prop and looking and understanding what you're delivering to your customers. And I think it was great going through it with the team because they were so thoughtful, and the questions that they asked, as if it was great to talk to someone who didn't know what we were selling and what we were doing. So they would push us by asking us additional questions, wanting to meet with additional stakeholders, not only us, but our sales engineering team, our sales team. And that was really important because it helped them understand where were we all speaking from the same script and where did we have some challenges. And then the team helped us kind of bridge those challenges that we had. And, for us, the timing actually was perfect because we just went through a massive rewrite. But the thoughtfulness behind the team and the approach was really what made it work. And as a company, you should visit your value prop at least once or twice a year to make sure it's resonating. And that forced us.
And so if we focus on the value prop for a second now, what do you think some of the key highlights were in that whole process of reviewing the value prop, what you had existing, what you thought, where you thought you needed to get to, and how the whole process worked out in the end? What do you think some of the key highlights were?
I mean, I think the highlights internally was that we had our stuff together. We were able to at least provide messaging docs and things of that nature. But I thought the biggest highlight was actually the readout. So even though we were going through these mini workshops with the team, and once in a while when you have these workshops, you're like, oh, it's just another agency. It's just a waste of time. But when we saw the output of what the team put together through that and explaining, it wasn't like, here's what we see as your value prop. They really pointed out the why. And more important is what they did is they distilled it down. We had 20 pages of, differentiation and positioning and taglines and all this. And they took it and put it into 3 slides, which frankly was taking me like a week to do. And because the team is looking through it with a different lens, they did it. And it really was great to have that collaboration in that readout session.
So if you look back over the whole process, what would you say was the kind of the biggest value add that you got from that whole process?
Oh, a rewrite of my value prop. It was great. It was something that was cleaner. They took words that we were maybe even struggling with in our existing positioning that maybe, we're sitting, an hour going back and forth on Slack looking for different words. And, the team, John, I think John like that, it was, found a different word, like even a word like, I don't know why I would never put regulatory in front of compliance. It made so much sense to have that. And I needed 2 words on something else on a website. And I also, it's more mileage for my dollar. I'm using that, the deck they created, the tools they created, the pillars they created in additional programs outside of ABM. So I think that was really great to see and to see it in use right now.
Yeah. And if you talk about expectations going into this whole process versus what actually came out of the process, if you kind of dial back to a couple of months ago, did you expect to have this kind of change in the value prop that you've actually achieved over the course of this process?
I don't think I went into it with expectations, to be fair. I kind of didn't want to because I'm always let down by agencies, to be honest with you. And I felt if I did that, it would be unfair to the team. But I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect to be impressed with what I saw. And every step of the way, I'm consistently impressed, which is very rare because I'm easily impressed. So I think that was the thoughtfulness that went into every word. And no, I didn't expect to take what they had. I thought I would stick to what I used. The other thing that I appreciate with the team too, they didn't discount what we had. Actually, there were many times they were like, no, this is the right thing. So even though we were maybe lacking some confidence because it was a different term or really different positioning for us, the team was like, nope, you're right. So, and they weren't scared to tell us when we were right, and they weren't scared to tell us when we were wrong.
And what do you think about the impact in terms of how it's going to resonate with your clients and with your prospects? Have you seen the impact yet on that?
Absolutely. The first thing, it's created consistency across the board with the organization. When I first started the company, we weren't we all were saying, again, speaking from a different script. So that's one area. But on our discovery calls is where we really are seeing it. It's interesting because it's quicker to put it into a script, into a deck on those, those calls versus into your ad campaigns and wider marketing. So that's to come to see how it resonates. But in terms of the calls, it's hitting all the places we need it to hit.
And last question for you, Melissa. What about in terms of the impact internally with perhaps the C-suite of the organization? What was their kind of feedback to you when you showed them the new value prop that you developed?
I mean, they've been so supportive along the entire way. They added a lot to it, to those initial documents. So I think they felt it really hit home. And it was for the first time that we were speaking really clearly about what we're doing as a company. We're a product-led company. So when you're product-led, sometimes it is harder to find that voice, right? Because you have this amazing product, which we have. So you're just focusing on that and that this works. You're not saying, oh, it needs to sound great or look great, this whole other area, and that's my job, right? So I think they were really impressed with that and that we were able to create it in a succinct manner.
Yeah, and just to tie things up nicely at the end here, in terms of ABM and the ABM strategy that you're deploying there at Capsule8, how do you see the kind of the value prop sitting, or the value proposition rather, sitting within that whole kind of strategy? Why do you think it's so important?
I think, with ABM, right, it's about hitting, I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's about hitting people right at the right time in the right moment in the buying cycle. And that's great. But if you don't have that value in front of someone at that time, you're going to lose them really fast, especially in my market. Security is a very crowded space, and marketers are completely scrutinized in our marketing. I think we have many, areas where, we can't self-fear. We can't be too optimistic. We have to find that right balance. And that's important. We found that with the team. That's a major point. And so I think bringing that all together was very, very important.
Fantastic. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing some of that thinking behind what's been going on over the last couple of months and learning more about your value prop. And it's we're definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to come over the course of the next few months.
Great. Thanks. Thank you for speaking with me.
Thanks, Melissa.